documentation as part of your practice to create a book. You can end up doing complicated linguistics research or making different kinds of software that affect how we work with language. There's lots of different ways you can work with this, and tried to create this space to bring all those people together. That you don't have to be a certain kind of person with a certain kind of background to be here. If you're interested in some of the things we're interested in here, you're very welcome, and I'm very happy to have you. Who's here at their first WordHack tonight? Hey, welcome! Yeah. Good to see you. Good to welcome you into WordHack, and very excited to see the inverse of those hands. Many returning faces. We've got a great lineup of featured presenters for you this evening. We're going to be hearing from Ingrid Burrington, Laine, Nooney, and American Artist. Give it up for your featured presenters. And but before our featured presenters, this there's an unscripted 10-minute monologue that needs to happen. In which exactly crossing the picket line.
Do we need sound for anybody else? Who needs music?
Yeah. Well, we have. Who needs to plug in a headphone? We have an open projector of which some number may need to. Is there anyone on the open projector who needs to plug in sound? It's okay if you do. Oh, a sacrificial test. Like, you need to, I can just put in my phone and play the Tony Hawk Pro Skater soundtrack.
Yeah. That's a lot cooler than what I was going to play.
Unfortunately, I went to an iPhone and now. I could also plug into this machine or just any machine.
I think that's a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 soundtrack. Oh no, don't play my email.
Okay.
Yep, I'm pumping your system full of ska.
Nice. Oh, this is my favorite. Volume is on.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I was like, I can skip the film files. I don't know.
Oh. Yeah. I heard it for a second there. I think it's going to be one of these tables.
Yeah, so let's just make sure this is all
We're at the like two guys stage sound.
What you would have heard if it worked was the infamous song Superman by Goldfinger. Once we get it working, maybe that can be our little treat, you know. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Hold on to what I'm a Superman.
so many things it could be. Okay. Play.
One more shot here. Oh,
Hey.
We got a live one.
It's promising.
Oh no,
not that.
Bing Music.
Hey.
Oh no, my phone is bad.
I have a friend who started just to talk about what's going on.
Wow. Okay. I think my phone has a flash.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, now we know this one works.
All right. All right, just imagine there is some heroic ska music playing behind me as I say that we are ready to start the show. Yeah! All right. And at the start of every WordHack, we have a very special, mark my mics, like a little hot, just like a little teensy bit hot. We have a special tradition here, which is the open projector. I mentioned I come from a poetry background. It was really important when I came to New York, I guess 13 years ago now, to be able to kind of like show up at a place where there was a poetry reading, and I didn't have to know anyone. I didn't have to submit anything. No one needed to think I was cool. I could just like write my name on a piece of paper. I could share my poem with a room full of people who could hold any collection of opinions about said poem. But then I could commiserate about the experience that I had reading it to a silent audience with a small group of people after that reading, and eventually make a friend or make someone who can look at your poem and give you some feedback. And then every time you do that, you make a connection, you get a little bit better, a little more confidence. But having that first place you can show work is really important to me, and a big part why I continue to do this as part of this show. So we have an open projector where folks can sign up and come up and show a project on the stage for 5 minutes or less. 5 minutes, I'll be keeping track. If you're wondering if you're going over time, look at me, and if I'm like, then you're over time. So yeah, we've got a nice full open projector this evening, and an amazing set of hands that I think we're going to be hearing from soon. So let's give a warm welcome to the person opening up our open projector, who is Jake Sheffick. Give it up for Jake.
Yeah, there's no sound. This is going to be interactive, so ideally people will touch the fingertips of these hands. I don't know where to put it so that it works.
Right there is great.
So that people can touch it, but I guess if you want to come up and do that.
Oh yeah, are we connected on the projector?
Let me connect the projector, but who's going to be brave enough to do it?
Touch your hand. Touch the finger.
Yeah.
I held hand once.
Digital media. Okay. Is it working on the projector? I don't know why it's not coming up on the projector, but let me
I think we're on HDMI 1. Should be
go
HDMI
like
2.
that.
No, that's good.
Okay.
It's good.
There we go. It found me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
the screen so that the camera's like on your face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna go thumb to thumb and pointer to pointer. I don't actually know what's happening. Dream of transcending mud? Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's see. Transcending cyborgs. Dream of transcending mud. Yes. Imagine creating mud. Creating sheep. Yes, every night. Creating computers. Too hard. Too difficult. Descending into computers. Yes, always. Oh, can compute with humans dream? What about had computers dreaming, but now I can't get back to it. Do we think? Ooh. Will humans think? Humans dream.
So you're composing the poem with your fingers.
Will we dream? Yeah, I don't know exactly how what I touch. Cyborgs. Okay, I'm just tapping the ring finger here. Will I dream? Will cyborgs dream? Do computers dream? Okay, all right. So we've got that one down. Oh, this has changed my face. Oh yeah, there we go. That's what's up. Nice. Oh no, get that. Come on. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, I like that. I'm pretty now. Oh. All right. Let's see. Do we transcend? Ooh, yeah. Here we go. Humanity, sheep, computers, dust, computers. What's this one? Becoming. What do we think? All right. How about over here? I'm going to the pinky now. I didn't go to the pinky earlier. Will AI think of? Ooh, how meta. Let's see. Can computers think of becoming computers? I'm stumped. I'm stumped. That's as far as I can go right there.
It's a little close to time. Is there anything you want to say about it?
No.
Sick. All right. Well, let's give it up for Jake Sheffett. All right. And please welcome to the open projector, Nick Montfort.
All right. I've got some stuff, not by me. I've been working with Lily von Bertram on a book and have some excavations that relate to perhaps the Apple II era, which we're going to hear about from Laine Nooney, and the piece that American artist recently had in the Whitney with an Apple II. These are works from basic programming up through 1989, starting in the time-sharing era and proceeding to IBM PC shareware. The first of these is Poet, author unknown, modified and reworked by Jim Bailey, Peggy Ewing, and David All, 1973. Thing of evil beguiling me, darkness there, slowly creeping, fiery eyes beguiling me, shall be lifted, nothing more. Thing of evil thrilled me, shall be lifted yet again, still sitting, fiery eyes thrilled me and my soul yet again. Midnight dreary beguiling me, shall be lifted yet again, thing of evil, never flitting, darkness there, nevermore. Bird or fiend beguiling me shall be lifted nevermore. This is Poetry Writer by Ron Clark in 1982. Actually, he attributed it to his TRS color computer. And it's printed in a book that includes the code. that generated all of the poems in it. This poem is called Soft Funny Kings. Soft funny kings lift graciously forever. The aged slippery stars shriek sweetly forever. Could I get some light? I feel like I'm like Claudius here. All right. Soft, lively devils kill easily from the house, as drunken, beautiful birds grind happily from the house. Dark, warm men jump sadly on the ground. The silvery, bloody swimmers burn sweetly above the clouds. Bronze-friendly clowns bat pleasantly near a tree when round, rich maidens jump blindly beside the fire. Bad, lively strangers range eagerly on the hill, and round, pretty clowns tinkle nearly after the war. Mighty, tender lovers clean neatly under the table. The dark, tight strangers grind terribly in the night. This is evocatively called Poetry Generator. And it's by Rosemary West, 1988. As you keep spilling things on yourself, we discuss the possibility of revolution. No one is affected by celestial music. And someone asks that I've learned to love myself. This is another one from the Poetry Generator. The disco dancers who never eat pork still expect to be paid. They don't care about your opinion, and without hesitation, you think about giving up. And the real story is that your secret has been sold. Okay, one more. Next to a temple, 10 priests walk in single file as a lone dove cries. Okay. And then the final one is Bonnie Ferner's 1989 story generator, Mel. This is actually, if people may know, the Scientific American article that has Mark V. Cheney in it. And so this is one of the two lesser known programs that are discussed in that article. Mel by Bonnie Ferner. A poet bird, Iwat, smells a computer, Mafumbo. What is the bird, coaxes Mafumbo. You are too muddled, sings Iwat. Shut up, sticks the computer, Mafumbo. You should awaken, sings Iwat. A blotchy computer contracts, it flops. The computer cavorts. Iwat pinpoints the humble computer. The computer bloats. The decrepit bird churns the computer. She twists it. The computer plays. Why does the bird twirl? Pleads the tree Tueshi. I don't know, hoots Tueshi. Why does the bird think? Coaxes the computer Mafumbo. I don't know, hoots Tueshi. A computer contracts. Tueshi scents the computer. The computer cavorts. Tueshi pulls the computer. The computer decays in the year 225. All right, one more story from Mel. The warrior scowls in the draught pulses. He loves himself in the draught. He molds himself in the draught. He glowers at the warrior Dugaki in the draught pulses. He snarls at her in the draught. He sits beside her, beside awareness. He seizes her. Oh, I am mighty, says Oban. He smothers her in the draught. He smashes her of the turquoise. Oban kills Dugaki. He has it of turquoise. He glares at it in the draught pulses. He calls it in the draught. He snarls at it in the draught. He sits with it beside greed. He seizes it. He smothers it in the draught. He smashes it of the turquoise. He kneads it beneath the thunderbolt. His body burns beneath the thunderbolt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick. Coming up next, we have Noah Rosenfield. Give it up for Noah.
All right, so hello everyone. I'm Noah Rosenfield. Some of you might remember me from the last WordHack if you were here, and if not, nice to meet you. I'm a game designer, and I'd like to show you something I've been working on for a while now. It's called adagrams. But first, I'd like to just ask a quick question. Is anyone here familiar with Wordle? Have you heard of Wordle? Yes, we've heard of Wordle. Okay, Wordscapes? Anyone? Wordscapes is a game? Yeah, okay, we got one. And how about the crossword? Anyone know the crossword? Okay. What do Wordle, Wordscapes, and the crossword have in common? Words, yes. And they want to put them in your mouth. All of those puzzles have one solution that they chose for you. Adagrams is different. Adagrams, you start with 6 letters, and you make 2 words, any 2 that you like, so long as they're at least 3 letters long, and you haven't played them yet. So maybe that's 1, 2. Maybe that's 1 toe. Maybe it's too new for you to really know. But whatever you choose, you're going to get a 1 point for each tile you use. You're going to get a bonus point for using all the tiles in a round. And you're going to get a new letter at the beginning of the next round. You can always use all of your letters, but you don't have to. But it is always possible. So, I was hoping, much like the first one, although maybe a little different, if anyone would like to give this a try, I'm looking for a volunteer to give a try to this amazing new word game that you've just seen and is really not too difficult to play. You can just make little 3-letter words the whole time if you'd like, or you could, you know, go for something a little bigger, whatever you like. Ivan, you were asking earlier. I don't know if you're still up for this. It's a lot of pressure.
I'll play, but something bad happened.
Oh man, something bad did happen. Just because they went to sleep, laptop went to sleep and decided that was too much for it.
Return. Return.
Too juicy, you know? I juiced it out.
Too many pixels.
want to be, man. You can be my guy any day. Alright. So we're going to go ahead and I'll throw you into the tutorial. It's going to be really, really easy and self-explanatory, based on what you've already seen. And I'm going to switch this over here if you don't mind. Switch the input over. Come on now. Come on back now.
So it only picks letters for which it is possible to make 2 3-letter words?
Yeah, there will always be an answer. There will always be multiple answers. Man, I'd really love to get this thing going. Let me see real quick here. Oh, he's playing. I know. Y'all are getting left out. It's terrible.
I know you guys can't see, but I just did a good one. Okay, and now I'm going to hit submit. Okay. All right, I got a new letter now. The new letter's S. I know. I'm going to have to abandon the words I did first. I'm only going to play this to try to do like all the letters. I'm not going to do like the junior varsity one at all. I'm not even going to try to do that. It's undignified.
Give me the other iPad. Yeah, give me this one. Give me this one. Come on now.
How come I have new words, but it's not letting me submit? Submit's grayed out. What do you have to do with that?
You gotta read the instructions sometimes. There are a couple of instructions.
Oh, wow.
That's right. No.
Wow.
Honestly, this is our biggest problem. People just get so focused on moving the letters, they stop reading the instructions.
But why do I have to shuffle them if I already like rearrange them manually?
It just wants to let you know you can do it. You know.
Okay, but how do I don't want to shuffle them. I just want to submit the new words I did.
Well, you're gonna have to shuffle them.
Oh, okay.
It'll only take a moment.
All right. So I have to shuffle them and then I can just resubmit them?
Yeah, that's true.
All right. I mean, do you really think that's the best way for this to go?
Well, you know, like I said, it's a work in progress.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now I'm gonna just.
Man, this really doesn't want to work. Huh?
I know you guys can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just redoing what I already did to conform to the rules of the game. I bet it is. If I could, I would imagine a version of me playing this where I didn't have to shuffle the words when I didn't want to. So you guys might be having more fun than I am. Okay.
It really wants to work. It's trying so hard.
Okay. I have 15 points now. Okay. Oh, what is that? What's check?
Oh, that's the check button. It'll tell you.
Oh, it says what it does at the top. Right. I just asked the question, but the answer was right in front of me. The check tool tells you the status of your groups. Try it. Okay. All right. I feel like this went well. I feel like we're good. I think this might be it.
You know, it's the best thing I got for you right now.
Okay. All right. How do people feel about just adding the S to make a previous word plural? Is that cool? All right. Okay, I'm up to 8 letters total. I did eras and spit. All right. Oh, check just tells you if it's a word. I feel like you could have. Yeah. Okay. Well, I used the check function to confirm that the words are words.
Yeah.
I'm gonna submit. All right. I'm satisfied with this. Does anyone else want to go? All right. Oh, we got some people in the back.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Oh, there's a new thing. Just you could take over when it says. There's like a new thing now. You could take over on mix. There's a mix tool you could use. Yeah. All right. I was ready to be done. Here you go. All right. Welcome. Okay. Thank you.
Wait, but can I do more letters? Like, I want to do sprint and C.
Yeah. So we're gonna have you're good to go. You can do anything.
Can I do a 6-letter word?
You can do a 6-letter word soon. You are still in the area of the game where it's going to keep you at 2 5-letter words, but the game does go up to a pair.
Oh no!
Of 7
Wait, now you can all see that?
No, actually, this is
That's
well, actually,
right there. I'm gonna be honest.
if you'd
with you.
like, actually, this would be even better. You can play from right here.
Oh my god,
and
I'll
this
switch.
one will actually
I'll do
work.
two at once. I'm so good.
Well, how about a little, oh, okay, I was gonna say, get a little community going here. Certainly could.
Okay, someone else can also play, I guess, but.
For anyone who's been baffled by the lack of
Oh my god, riots!
Gotta find a new one.
That should be clearer in the instructions, I'm gonna be honest with you.
It was in the opening monologue, but
No
I
one
can
listened.
You're right, it wasn't. It was not in the opening monologue.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Oh my god. Why? You should really be able to, like, you know. Okay. Tire.
You should be able to, you know.
Tires. No. God damn it. Tears? This is so embarrassing for me. I gotta tell you because I'm.
If you need a hand, that button in the
No.
lower left.
I
Okay. It won't show you the answer. It'll just give you a nudge. If you like a nudge. You're also doing great. You also could play any of these. You know, you don't have to.
You don't have to use all of them.
I don't?
No.
Again, you.
That was also in the opening monologue. But I understand it went quick.
I'm gonna be honest with you. It wasn't. I'm sorry. This is such a fun game.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm sorry it took so long to get it up on the projection. There we go.
All right.
And there you are. Here's your score.
All right.
That's lovely.
But I
You can hit. And here now you have your own little sort of
Wow.
poem
Who is she? She's
for
so good at
what
this.
you made. Anyway, so yeah. Sorry for the delay. And if anyone's interested, it is out now. You can get it. It's called Adagrams. ADDA grams.
All right, you heard it here first. A word game that lets you think for you. All right? Just wake up and play adagrams. Coming up next on the Open Projector, we have Brian Abelson. Give it up for Brian. We worked very hard to get this cable.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your work. Is that showing up anywhere? Somewhere? Oh, hey. Hey. All right. I'll do this from my knees. I made something called SaySynth. It's a synthesizer built on Mac say command. Yeah, it's based off of the Yahoo logo from the 90s that I'm wearing on my hat. And I actually made hats of them, but they're now sold out because they were so popular. More popular than the software itself. So I made SaySynth when I found this like extremely archived speech synthesis programming guide somewhere online. And basically some benevolent developer in the 90s or before that decided that they wanted to make the speech synthesis framework for Mac sing. And so they made this like DSL where you can specify like phonemes, so individual parts of speech, and then like how long each phoneme lasts, and then individual pitch contours for the phoneme. I'm pretty sure no one ever used this, and until me. And so SaySynth is a command line interface. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. You can play chords. You can give it MIDI files and have it sing text. You can play arpeggiators. You can make sequences that are actually YAML files, which I know everyone loves. Like any good synthesizer, it comes with built-in demos, which I'm going to play for you now. Let's see if this is going to work. Yeah, this one is called Frogs. Oh, and that didn't work. We'll just play the recording of it. Hey. I think it should be on. There are other sounds that come in. Yeah, everyone has agreed that this is the banger, and all the other ones don't live up to this one. But I'll play another one just for curiosity. This one's called Fire. You can guess what it says throughout it. Yeah, I'll just let you listen to this for a while. Alrighty, thanks so much, Brian. It is a great hat and a great logo. Closing out our open projector, we have returning open projector favorite, Samuel Lee. Give it up for Samuel.
Hello. It's a little bit tall. Okay, so last times I've done this, I've had like a laptop I brought up on stage, but I don't have that today. So no technical difficulties will be had. Yes. Todd giving a woo there. So this is a game. We're going to play a game, and you're all going to be playing this game. The game is called Well World. Going to get a round of applause for Well World. You all done? Okay. Okay, so here's how Well World is played. You can all of you can shout out anything at any time, and I'll respond to you. But first, before you start, I've got to give a backstory. So you've all gone onto a bus for a tour guide for this mystical, tour experience somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. And you're going to this well, which is meant to be magical. So you all get out of this tour bus, all of you here tonight, and you're all standing in front of this well. So each of you play yourselves in this situation. What do you do? Jump in? Who said jump in? Okay, you jump in. And you, what do you do on the way down? You don't, it's his choice. What do you yell? Okay, I'm just going to take your first answer. You do like a big, like loud inhale, and you hit the ground, and it hurts. It really hurts when you hit the ground. What does everyone else do? Huh? Is there water? No, there's no water in the well. Like immediately? Okay. Well. Okay. Okay. You pick. No. We got it. We got it. What do you say to the operator? Madam. Yeah. We. Gentle person. Okay. Please slow down. What are you talking about? Where are you? On it. It doesn't matter. Sorry, did I just hear someone say it didn't matter? Like on the other side of this? Is this a prank? Is this a prank call that was happening? What's happening? No? Okay, so someone's in danger then. Please, where's your location? At the place the tour guide brought us, by the magic well. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get someone out there. What does everyone else do? Look for a plaque. Okay, you don't find a plaque. Does anyone else want to look for a plaque? Yeah. Sorry. Okay, who do you ask? Okay, you go up to the tour guide and say, what do you say to them specifically? I just do the tour. I mean, it's like a historical thing. No, if you look at the flyer, it says like it's like legend. So, oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. I've been trained on that. Are you talking to a tour guide as well? To be clear, you're not talking about someone else, you know. Are you okay? I'm fine. Okay, he's fine. I love that you're all just going on that, having their own story there. Who are you talking to? To the tour guide again? Okay, one question at a time, please. Yes, it does happen quite a bit. History of the well, I mean, it's just legend. Legend says it's magical. I mean, what? Do you want? Okay, no more questions about the well. You're like the tour guide gets very anxious and then he like just sort of walks off into the tour bus. And then how much more time do I have? 1 minute. Okay, we've got 1 minute to find an ending here. Okay. Okay. Could you give us more info on the penny?
It's actually a wooden nickel, which I earned from a miniature golf course in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
That's a pretty lucky penny. Okay. So, with what force do you hurl this into the well?
I try to flick it with my thumb. It bounces
Okay. And it lands on your face. And it doesn't really hurt, but it is a little bit annoying. Oh, the pandemic. The paramedics are here. Yeah. And firemen, and also people to get you out the well. Sorry? Oh. They're smoking. They like get a ladder down and they help you out the well, and now you're outside the well. What do you do?
Well, first I pretend that I'm really like faint, so they have to like really manhandle me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask for water when we get up because I thought there was gonna be water at the bottom of the well.
Okay. The firemen are they do that. And everyone else gets back on the tour bus, and you go with the firemen back to the fire station, and that is Well World.
Wow, what a word hack that was. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam. Let's give it up for all our Open Projector presenters. And for our amazing star at the bottom of the well. An incredible performance. It's been our Open Projector. I want to give a quick shout out to our viewers on twitch.television. I see you here. Hello, Kit Buckley. Hello, Fuzzball. Hello, Radium Skull. Good to see you. We have your chat displayed here in the space. It's great sharing this space with you. How we doing out there for WordHack? Are you ready for your first featured presenter? Yes, I too am ready. Really excited to welcome Ingrid Burrington back to WordHack. Ingrid first presented here in our second year showcase, the WordHack biennial. It did not continue to happen every 2 years. It was just on the second year of WordHack. And Ingrid is an amazing artist, writer, researcher, map maker. The reason I know where all the carrier hotels in Manhattan are, a real expert in internet infrastructure and also rocks and crystals. I'm really excited to see what Ingrid has to share with us this evening. Please give it up for Ingrid Burrington.
Yeah, can I just sit?
Yeah, you can sit.
Nice. Okay, I'm just gonna.
Oh no, I loosened too far.
All right, that's good. This is good. Okay. Oh yeah. Fuck, I didn't put dog in the slide. I'll pull up the dog. Should I start with the dog or end with the dog? All right, so I have to pull up a different slideshow to show you the dog. This is a slide presentation I had to give for the Cooper Union Board of Trustees last week. It was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life, but they paid me $2,500. Anyway, this is my dog. I've been putting her in a lot of my slide talks because things are bad, and this is one of the sources of joy in my life. And I thought I would share that with you because maybe you would also like some joy in your life, guys. I'm nervous because first of all, this is a very stacked lineup. And Kit Buckley's in the audience, or he's on twitch.tv. Kit Buckley has the best, one of the few newsletters I always open. He has been on a journey to watch every Nicolas Cage film, and he sends out an email with every film, and every description of the film is perfect. It's the best. Anyway, So I'm kind of nervous because I've been like hiding in academia for the last couple of years because I wanted health insurance, and this is kind of the first time in a long time that I'm talking to an audience of like a different kind of nerd. So hopefully I feel a little rusty. I'm going to be talking about some research that is partly stuff I was doing in school and some stuff that I started doing in 2019. So there's one person in the audience who was at the talk I gave at Radical Networks in September 2019, and I apologize in advance for some of the repetition. So this is sort of the dumb question that I'm starting with. It's very hard to find out where the rocks in the first computers came from. So like, it's like common enough knowledge, like, because there's lots of like news articles and like NGO reports and like clickbaity like graphics explaining like all the blood that goes into making a phone, right? That's like, it's, you know, it's not like it's not a necessarily everyday understanding, but it's like pretty easy to Google. But like, you want to know about like the Fairchild semiconductor silicon transistors invented in 1956? Like, yeah, no way. You're not going to find anything about that because corporate archives don't keep things like, you know, receipts on like, where did we buy the rocks? Where did the silicon from whence Silicon Valley got its nickname actually come from? This is a question I have had for a while. And there are actually stakes to this beyond me just being like a kind of curious like loser. So part of that is because of William Shatner. This is a 1976, yes, AT&T educational video about microchips. And you see the microchips gently wafting along on this bed of sand. So there's like in a lot of marketing materials about computer chips and what they are and how they work, you will see references to the fact that silicon dioxide is the most common component in sand. This is a more contemporary example from the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. And while it is true that there is a lot of silicon dioxide in sand, you cannot make a computer out of sand. That is not a thing. And there's like chemical reasons for that I can get more into, but like I'm worried I'm gonna go over time, so I'm gonna skip a lot of science. But this is a problem, not only because of the way that like this sort of, oh, it's just sand, like it doesn't matter where it's from kind of erases the very specific geographies and histories that go into electronic supply chains, and in this particular case, the ways that computers have always been sort of these products of globalized imperialism. But also because there is this sort of assumption of sand as this sort of like infinite ubiquitous material, which is not. We're running out of sand. That's a different thing. That's another problem. We're not going to go more into that. But, you know, aside from that, it's like that's not even infinite, but the idea, it's like this stuff cannot just actually keep being made forever and ever and ever. And this has increasingly contemporary stakes because of the whole like thing in the last 2 years of, oh no, we need to build more computer chip factories and we need to put them in America because China, right? A funny thing about a lot of the coverage of this stuff is it almost never mentions like the tremendous resource cost that goes into making computer chips. Like I think it's very funny that there's lots of stories that are like, man, seems like Arizona's like really in trouble with water and can't sustain more people. And then at the same time, it'll be like, hey, they're gonna build a giant semiconductor manufacturing hub in Phoenix. This will be fine. Do you know how much, like, computer chips manufacturing requires like a lot of water. And to be fair, like Arizona was already in a lot of trouble, but it's like not a good idea. Anyway, so that's bad. Anyway, where did the silicon in the first computer chips come from? So I'm pretty sure, I can say with pretty high confidence, it came from Brazil. This is a crystal from Brazil. I'm doing a little prop comedy tonight. It's a quartz crystal from Brazil. Eventually it becomes this. This is a silicon wafer, and these are little transistors that have been printed onto it. It doesn't keep being in Brazil, but we'll get into that later. This is where it is now. So the main reason I know this is because of war. Because, like I said, finding archives from corporations that were working in the 1950s and 60s, and specifically finding where did you buy your rocks from, like that's not something that even if they have the papers in like a museum or library, they didn't keep the like rocks receipts. But during World War II, the United States spent a lot of money and resources building out mineral supply chains so that they could do war, right? And so that meant that I could go to the National Archives and go look at documents from like geologists who were sent to Latin America to go figure out building new mines, which is fine and nothing bad happened there. And specifically, so quartz crystals, why Brazil? Why? So Brazil has a lot of minerals. This is a known thing about they're big on those. But quartz crystal is actually pretty ubiquitous. You can find it in a lot of places. But Brazil becomes kind of the central point sometime in the late 19th or early 20th century. The oldest citation I could find for Brazil is where you get the good quartz is 1901. And it's specifically in the context of people making laboratory glassware or really specialized lenses for telescopes and shit. So the best I can glean kind of from just what's in kind of existing digitized archives and stuff, and there's probably stuff in German, but I don't read German yet. But basically what seems to have happened is that during the Napoleonic Wars, a lot of Germans went to Brazil because Napoleon was telling them to leave. And they established, various communities in Brazil. And they already had ties to the existing glass trade in Germany. Also, there were a lot of gem traders who ended up in Brazil. So this very niche market kind of just got captured by German immigrants in Brazil in the late 19th century. For most of that period, it was a pretty unregulated sector of Brazilian mining because it obviously, was not as lucrative as gold or diamonds or even iron and manganese. It also was largely done with hand tools with just guys digging in the ground because basically, finding a good crystal, it's it takes a little bit of work. Most of this was done by workers who are called garimpeiros, which is a colloquial Brazilian term for kind of artisanal hand-tooled miners. It's been used since the 1700s. In one citation I read, it was actually originally from some Portuguese word for climbing, because the miners who would do this would climb the hills and run away whenever the Portuguese settlers would try to conscript them into compulsory labor, which yeah, I mean, I would run away too. I am really nervous. God. You're doing great. Thanks, Laine. So the United States obviously did not need a lot of crystals so that they could make lenses or whatever. They needed them for radios. I'm trying to think, what are the important things to tell you about the radios? It's nothing. Oh, okay. Actually, this is important. So, in the 1940, the army is okay, we're gonna replace all of our radios that don't have crystals with radios that have crystals. They borrow a design from Motorola that was actually the first police cruiser AM radio, made in 1936. And this is actually a very bold move in 1940 for them to do, because there is the quartz crystal radio manufacturing industry in 1940 is some guys, basically. And the quartz commodity broker scene in Brazil is some guys. There is not really the scale of we're gonna make radios for every military vehicle, and also we're about to do a world war. That's a lot of vehicles. So in the case of quartz crystal, this meant that there was a lot of effort put into expanding and mechanizing what was otherwise a very, bespoke, handcrafted thing, which means that in the National Archives in College Park, you have a lot of these tiny little pictures of the actual mines, because they sent geologists who were supposed to help make the mines good. And they were not pleasant mines to work in. Although the way that, as obvious, these are reports being written by white American geologist men who really want to go home. So they're not really that compassionate towards the indigenous Brazilian workers, unsurprisingly. A detail that really fucked me up was from a report from this pilot program where they were bringing medical aid to these really rural quartz mining regions. Oh, incidentally, bringing stuff to mechanize it didn't really work, because then they would just get Caterpillar tractors stuck in the jungle. It's hard to bring equipment to the jungle. Some big Herzog energy there, I guess. Yeah, so anyway, there is a surprising amount of insight into what was actually going on in these particular mines in this period, which is unusual. There also, forgot I had sound, there's also a lot of there's some amazing propaganda from this period. Yeah, I think I have enough time to play you this clip, and if the sound doesn't work, I'll be so sad. But so this is a clip from Brazilian Quartz Goes to War, which was made by the U.S. government as a little educational film about the role of Brazilian quartz in the war effort. And I am obsessed with it, one, because it has this incredibly lengthy sequence of just crystals, and two, it does provide a surprise, like a pretty detailed, like, documentation of like a quartz mine in Brazil at that time. So let's see.
Quartz crystal, formed in beautiful shapes, changing light into beautiful patterns.
Yeah, it's really long.
For centuries, it was used only for jewelry and ornament. Who'd have thought that the gems in a necklace would someday make blitzkrieg possible? Although quartz is common, quartz suitable for radio and telephonic use is most uncommon. In fact, our neighbor to the south, Brazil, is the one country in the world where quartz of fine quality exists in sufficient quantity to supply our increasing need for control of wavelengths.
This is real, Laine.
One of the richest deposits is in the state of Minas Gerais. Minas Gerais means general mines. The name is apt. This Brazilian state has fortunes in mineral deposits. Bauxite, manganese, chromite, nickel, mica, industrial diamonds, quartz crystals, minerals vital to the war effort. In fact, Brazil has been called the arsenal of raw materials. About 450 miles north of Rio and 25 miles from the nearest railroad is this quartz mine.
So they probably use machines to get
Hard
that deep.
manual labor, a pick and shovel, and a hammer and bag in which to carry the quartz. These are the miners' simple tools. The natives of this state have been miners for centuries, for it was here that the fabulous quantities of gold and diamonds were discovered, which caused Portugal to take an interest in her possession.
Take an interest means do a transatlantic slave
must be
trade.
done by hand, for the quartz is easily fractured. One false thrust of a pick, and 100 crystals could be lost.
This music is like way too cheerful. Yeah, a lot of these guys didn't have shoes. And in that medical report, there was a thing that was like, man, they keep getting cuts on their feet. Seems like we should do something about that. Like, that's kind of
Long
fucked up.
experience has taught the miners to handle the crystals as if they were precious jewels. The ideal natural crystal consists of a six-sided prismatic body capped at each end by an apex. However, due to mining methods, the usual crystal we get has only one apex. Selection of the finer pieces starts at the mine and continues all along the line of shipment. Relatively few pass all the tests. Every piece is carefully washed, stone by stone. The United States is buying the major portion of Brazilian quartz, for with the vast number of mechanized units being produced, literally millions of the small vibrating wafers are needed.
And I feel like you kind of are getting the vibe. I guess I just wanted to kind of give you a sense of like the scale of this. Like it's a massive undertaking. Look at all those. It's huge. All right, so that was happening through the war, and then when World War II ended, commodity purchasing by the United States military dropped tremendously because they weren't, doing a world war anymore. The invention of synthetic quartz, which could be used for radio crystals, kind of like killed the radio quartz market. However, there was still need for things related to laboratory equipment and like optical lenses and that sort of thing. And this is where our little guy, the silicon wafer, comes in. So it's like kind of reflecting on Laine right now. She's in the spotlight. I love it. I'm almost at time. I'm so sorry. I'll try to make it quick. So the process of making you remember that big thing that William Shatner was holding in the video, like the giant like rod? So this is like sliced out of one of those guys. And the process of making that really big thing that gets sliced into these little guys is basically melting like a bunch of like kind of raw metallurgical grade silicon in a container that is made of super pure quartz, like crystal that's been sort of fused and melted into a container. You need that basically because like this has to be like 99.99% pure silicon so that they can like control the process of carefully adding little chemical dopants to it so you can control how the electrons move around. And if they melted it in a container that was made of like literally anything else, you would probably get trace elements of that chemical in there, and then you couldn't do all your little chemicals. The sand metaphor starts really early, or the sand comparison starts like really early on in discussions of this stuff, and really kind of just persists like from a pretty, like it just kind of becomes like a dominant part of the story of like, oh, we invented the silicon transistor, sand. These are related. And it's funny because they're always very careful about it to be like, oh, silicon's in sand. They don't say it's made out of sand, but they kind of just like leave it hanging. And it's like, this is just a comparison we're making. And I'm really interested in the difference in sort of these, like just the different energies of these, like the narrative of like, we can do computers for infinity and everything's fine. And there will never be a resource problem versus like, check out our incredibly special crystals and how special they are. And some of this partly just has to do with like, I don't know, computer people maybe like misunderstanding that infinity is like an abstraction and like not a real thing. Sorry. So sorry, to wrap this up. So this is no longer mined primarily. Today, most of the quartz mining in Brazil that happens is still going to be done by like small-scale garimpeiro miners, but they're mostly going to be selling to people who like sell to New Age shops. It's like not really a big market anymore. This is a mine in North Carolina that I visited in 2019. They let me take some rocks. It was very nice of them. And it is where most of the quartz that is used in computer chips is mined. The reason for the shift to this particular mining site mostly actually has to do with automating labor. Basically, they figured out a way to separate out quartz from crushed rock more efficiently, so you didn't need people to like kind of dig through it. And then also there were trade policies in Brazil in the 70s that were making it like more expensive, which I learned from a WikiLeaks cable. Yeah, there was like there's a lot of like old stuff in the like WikiLeaks cables. So this is like a 1974 correspondence where some British fused quartz manufacturers are like, the Brazilians are making us pay too much money. You know. Yeah, so like I don't know I've been trying to work on how to tell this as a story that's like not insane or that is like compelling and not just like incredibly niche and boring. I've been writing a lot of stuff from the point of view of a crystal because like that is kind of the only vantage point that I feel like comfortable kind of situating myself in. I'm not brave enough to read that in front of you. It's not ready. But yeah, I like this is I hope that any of this was interesting and that you all had a good time. Thank you.
Let's give it up one more time for Ingrid Burrington. What an amazing presentation. And we are ready for that crystal fiction / narrative / not fiction / history, crystal personal history, whenever you are ready to share it with us. We have arrived at the infamous mid-show break for WordHack. This is the one break you get during the show, aside from the breaks we had earlier when we were working on stuff. Those weren't real breaks where you could leave the room comfortably because it could have started again at any time. This is a break where you can leave the room and go to the bathroom or get a drink. Our bartender, Jason, is really great. Make sure you tip them well. We're going to come back here in, like, let's say, like 12 minutes. I'll see you back in here in 12. And we're going to be hearing from Laine Nooney, an American artist. See you later. researcher in the history of computation and in speculative game economies. I love that aspect of your work, Laine. But also the recent author of the Apple II Age, now available. Wait, hold it up. Show it on projector. You should check it out and get this book. Are we live? Do I have to unplug, replug?
Look at that book.
We need this computer to look at this book. Everyone look into your heart. Imagine a computer that's more of a smiling microwave than a computer as we would understand it today. Imagine a color like blue but lighter. Yes, you understand. You're imagining the color I'm picturing. I'm dying up here, guys. I don't have my ska.
Where's the trumpet?
Where is the trumpet? Where is my solo? I'm doing everything I can, holding on to what I am, but I'm not a Superman.
We're definitely on here. So it could be. Can we check settings and stuff for HDMI? Yeah. We're definitely.
Please welcome Laine Nooney.
Thank you, Todd. Woo! Oh my Christ. Okay. Yeah, hi. I'm Laine. I'm not going to be nearly as funny as Ingrid. Sorry. First up. That's a great way to open. Okay. So I am a computer and video game historian. I'm a professor at NYU. I did a terrible thing. I wrote a book. I don't advise it. I wrote a book about the Apple II. I mean, like, I don't know, hand check. Whoever owned an Apple II? Yeah, like 6 of you. Calm down. Like, this is not, first of all, a verbal text adventure, but thank you. Like, I didn't own one, who cares? Okay, so, yeah. That's it, there we go, okay. And so this book is really my attempt, the Apple II Age, how the computer became personal. It's my attempt to tell a different kind of story about where personal computing comes from. And so, and I did, if you want proof that I maybe accomplished that, I did have a computer man message me last week on Mastodon to say that reading my book, quote, changed the context of his own memories. And no, it was shockingly good. And he is still grappling with the way my book reframed his own experience of nostalgia. So, yeah. Right, just like
unsettling the ease of white men is all I want to do. So I tried a couple different ways to figure out like how to share with you all like what this book is about, why I think it's important, but I just keep coming back to the fact that like I wrote the fucking book and I said it best there. So I'm just gonna do a book reading. From the introduction, I could have chosen to pull some of the like narrative software stories or something, but I think what's most important to me is to think about how we can change the big picture of what we think the history of computing is, and I think the introduction does that super well. And so, like, I don't know, if a book talk isn't your vibe, you know where the bar is. This is what I'll be doing for the next 18 minutes. Okay. Ha ha ha! Right. That's right. You thought you could get away with it. Okay. Every once in a while, Steve Jobs announced, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything. It was the morning of January 9th, 2007, at the annual Macworld convention in San Francisco, and Jobs, Apple's computer CEO and visionary-in-chief, was angling to make history. Attendees from across the creative sectors had camped outside the Moscone West Convention Center since 9 o'clock the night before, had endured Coldplay and Gnarls Barkley as they stabled inside the auditorium, awaiting Jobs' arrival, had dutifully, even passionately cheered for Jobs' rundown of iPod Shuffle developments and iTunes sales, along with a pitch for Apple TV packed with clips from Zoolander and Heroes. And as everyone suspected, it all turned out to be one long tease for the only thing anyone ever remembers. Steve Jobs was unveiling the iPhone. So pitched by Jobs is the convergence of three distinct technological trajectories: the telephone, the portable music player, and internet communication devices. The iPhone needed a conceptual on-ramp to help frame its revolutionary potential. So Jobs opened with a little Apple history. Behind him on stage, a slide deck transitioned to the picture of an iconic 1984 Macintosh computer, followed by the 2001 iPod. These selections were deliberate. Both had shifted Western norms about how computer technology fit into our lives, changed our gestures, altered our workflows. In Jobs' foreshortened timeline, the iPhone was the natural inheritor of this tradition of innovation, a capstone technology in a chain of hardware evolution straddling the end of one century and the beginning of another. The iPhone promised to braid Apple's many trajectories into a single impulse. By drawing a direct path from the Macintosh's graphical user interface to the dial of the iPod to the touchscreen of the iPhone, Jobs presented the development of all three as natural and inevitable, subtly suggesting a metaphysical inheritance between them that transcends their status as mere products. This is company history told only through its virtues, a techno-secular creation of Adam in which the first man reaches out with a mouse and God swipes back with a finger. But here we should pause and consider all the history that must be put aside for Jobs' version of events to hold together. Elided by necessity are all the Apple products that flopped or failed, the ideas that stayed on the drawing board, the incremental alterations intended to get Apple through the next quarter rather than catalyze a revolution. Think of the clamshell laptops, the Lisa workstations, the quick takes Newtons and Pippins. But there is one absence in particular that reveals more than the rest: the Apple II. Released in 1977, 7 years before the Macintosh, the Apple II would become one of the most iconic personal computing systems in the United States, defining the cutting edge of what you could do with a computer of one's own. Like the founding of Apple Computer Company in 1976, the development of the Apple II is often presented as a collaboration between Steve Jobs and his lesser-known partner, Steve Wozniak. In truth, the product was almost entirely a feat of Wozniak's prodigious talent with electrical engineering, though it likely would have never come to the market with the bang that it did had Jobs not been so rapaciously dedicated to commercializing Wozniak's talents. It was the Apple II, not the Macintosh, that made Apple Computer one of the most successful businesses of the early personal computing era, giving the corporation a foundation from which it would leverage its remarkable longevity. Yet the system cannot appear in Jobs' harried, abridged history. The Apple II renders too complicated the very mythology he was trying to enact through stagecraft. To attend to such absences in Jobs' speech, to its false starts and its things left out, is to make a case for a history of computing that is more intricate than our everyday blend of hype and nostalgia. For many, the history of personal computing is personal. It is something witnessed but also felt, a nostalgic identification with a technological past that lives within. It comes alive at surprising moments. A familiar computer in the background of a television show, a YouTube video recording of the AOL dial-up sound, a 3.5 floppy disk found in a box of old files. These intimate memories of simpler technological times routinely form the ground from which personal computing circulates as a historical novelty. And beyond our individual reminiscing, personal computers' past is continually leveraged by those invested in using that past, like Jobs did, to barter for a particular kind of future. To move beyond this frame is to suggest that perhaps computers themselves cannot tell their own history, and their most ardent prophets are not the sole keepers of their meaning. The emergence of what we would now call personal computing in the United States during the 1970s and 80s is a wondrous mangle. But when we focus on lauding heroes, heralding companies, or claiming revolutions, we limit the breadth of our understanding of and actual appreciation for the impact of computer technology and the work of history itself. Naive fixations leave us open to charismatic manipulation, a particular talent of Jobs's, about the reason these technologies exist, the forces that brought them here, and the transformative authority they allegedly possess. If these histories have thus far gone unheard, we may do well to ask ourselves what has been gained and who gained it by their exclusion. What we may discover is that the story of great men with their great technologies launching their great revolutions is a story more for them and their shareholders than for us. The history of personal computing's emergence is as much social, geographic, cultural, and financial as it is technical or driven by human genius. It's a story of hardware and software, children and investment bankers, hardcore hobbyists, enthusiastic know-nothings and resistant workers, the letter of the law and the spirit of the code, dramatic success and catalytic failure. It is a story of people and of money, who had it, who wanted it, and how personal computing technology in the United States was positioned to make more of it. This is the journey of this book, using the Apple II and the software designed for it as a lens to magnify the conditions that first transformed the general-purpose computer into a consumer product in the United States. It's a story that begins in the mid-70s and extends into the mid-80s, a time during which there was a marked proliferation of computer use among an uncertain American public. This was a period of rapid industry transformation as overnight entrepreneurs hastily constructed a consumer computing supply chain where one had previously never existed. In other words, this moment in time marks the very beginning of individual computer ownership, technologically, economically, and socially. And we could have no better guide through this misunderstood and often misrepresented terrain than the Apple II's hardware and software. As the very thing Jobs chose not to talk about, the Apple II nonetheless documents, better than any computer of its time, the transformation of computing from technical oddity to mass consumer good, and thus cultural architecture. So, many people who would be interested in this book will have been drawn to it by an internal sense, as I'm sure many of you have, of having watched personal computing happen right before your eyes. But historical knowledge accumulates in other ways too, through YouTube videos or Netflix documentaries, films and television programs that use the 1970s or 80s as a set piece, articles in Wired or The Atlantic, perhaps even a book or two like Walter Isaacson's The Innovators or Stephen Levy's Hackers. Histories of personal computing are continually drawn upon by entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, and the like, and presented in much the same way that Jobs did with the iPhone launch, where discussions are highly selective and forever progressive. We've been told over and over again in countless forms and by myriad voices that personal computing was, from the moment of its invention, instantly recognized as a revolutionary technology and eagerly taken up by an American public. This is not true. In the 1970s and 80s were not a period of mass consumer adoption in American households. Indeed, the bullish estimates of the late 70s and early 80s investors and entrepreneurs and futurists fell quite short of the heady predictions that the market would double year after year after year. Personal computing ownership barely touched double digits by the mid-80s and was in only a third of US households by the 1990s. Computers would pollinate more quickly in businesses and schools. These are American institutions more vulnerable to appeals of efficiency or global competitiveness. But on the domestic front, the truth is that personal computers were not ubiquitous American household technologies. And this was not simply an issue of price. The computer was not the television or the radio or the microwave. It was not obvious or easy to use, even in its more commercial forms, and nor did it solve a particular problem. Rather, the computer's greatest strength was also, at the moment of its commercial emergence, its greatest weakness. A computer was never anything more than what one made of it. Reluctance, ambivalence, confusion, and frustration were recurrent responses even among those excited about computing. Yet how even a fraction of the American public came to be convinced that to make something of the personal computer is not a simple tale of the ignorant masses recognizing the power and importance of the so-called computer revolution. Rather, it is a story of the tremendous effort undertaken to present computing as essential, helpful, safe, and personal. In doing so, this emerging technology was quickly fitted to a variety of mainstream cultural and political norms. Personal computing was celebrated as a means to preserve American global economic leadership, a way of backtracking the rising deindustrialization of the 1970s and advancing American entrepreneurship. Industry stakeholders eagerly leveraged laws and lobbied the government to protect their financial interests, even at the cost of their consumers. In a surreal defiance of 1980s demographics that marked an unprecedented rise in divorce and single mothers, the personal computer was endlessly positioned as an ideal addition to the nuclear family. And the personal computer was heralded as a device that could save a cratering American education system, all in the service of upholding the cause of American exceptionalism. These ideas were not manipulations or malignant growths that formed atop some pure essence of what computing once was or what it could have been. These were motivations there from the start that shaped what people imagined personal computing should be and would become. By the end of 1983, the Apple II and the Apple IIe family had the largest library of programs of any microcomputer on the market, just over 2,000. Meaning that its users could interact with the fullest range of possibilities in the microcomputing world. Just 3 classics right here. This gamut of software offers us a glimpse of what users did with their personal computers, or perhaps more tellingly, what they hoped they might do. While not all products were successful, obviously, the period of the late 70s to the mid 80s was one of unusually industrious experimental software production, as mom and pop development houses were trying to answer the question, what is a computer even good for? The fact that this brief era supplied such a remarkable range of answers, from presumably obvious stuff like spreadsheets, word processors, and games, to remarkably niche artifacts like recipe organizers, biorhythm charters, and sexual scenario generators, illustrates that unlike popular accounts that would cast the inventors of these machines as prophets of the information age who could simply externalize our human desires, computing was an object of remarkable contestation, unclear utility, futurist fantasy, conservative imagination, and frequent aggravation for its users. Software is an essential part of this story because it is through software that the hypothetical use case of a computer materializes. Through software, consumers began to imagine themselves and their lives as available to enhancement through computing. Yet rather than treat the American consumer software industry as monolithic or centralized, this book's gambit is to split off into 5 concurrent software stories, each tied to a specific categorization and then focused on a particular case study. So it's chapters 3 through 7 there. And so the idea here is that the emergence of specific software categories is actually a history of what people imagined computers were for, how people used them, and how they imagined or were asked to imagine themselves as users. In each case, the purpose of these software categories starts out indeterminate in the mid-70s, but formalizes by the early 80s through this tangled effort of developers, publishers, journalists, investors, industry analysts, and users themselves. Tied up in these stories of economics and industry are people, the consumers whose preferences and desires emerged as aggregates tallied up in sales charts, the users who posed questions and opinions in letters to the editor, the magazine owners, editors, and journalists who mediated consumer moods and ambitions, and of course the programmers, investors, marketers, and company founders who didn't just imagine a new world of software, but made it, financed it, and sold it. In some ways, this book may seem a mangle of contradictions. It claims to focus on a specific piece of hardware, the Apple II, but is more generally about software. It purports in some fashion to be a history of use, but is perhaps more accurately a history of American industrial formation. Each chapter is unique to the category and case study it focuses on, yet there is a great deal of common terrain between them: corporate history, sales analysis, attention to how forms of privilege shape opportunity. This book wants to focus on the Apple II industry, yet in many moments it exceeds that boundary when the specifics of the platform are not helpful in understanding the larger moves of the market. It is a story that also must move between inventors, consumers, and this emergent industry's role in a larger speculative economy. The history of technology is full of moments when creative and technical problem solving of an individual or group materially matters, altering the terrain of the technologically feasible. The early history of microcomputing is rife with wicked problems that some people were, for any number of reasons, better at solving than others, as well as moments when an individual's ability to read or anticipate a consumer desire transformed their range of opportunities. And as for users and consumers themselves, I want to give sincere consideration to people's curiosity and willingness to purchase expensive software they'd never seen, to read dense and incomprehensible manuals, to write letters to computer magazines begging for help, to bang their hands on keyboards, to break copyright law, to make backup disks, all in the hope that microcomputing would prove itself worth the trouble. Yet these moments never happen in a vacuum. It is no accident that so many of the individuals in this book are straight, middle to upper class, educated white men operating in a relatively supported personal environment. This book takes special care to consider the background and structural advantages of individual historical actors under examination, sometimes with surprising conclusions. For example, access to Harvard rather than Silicon Valley is the defining attribute for many of the entrepreneurs this book surveys. As such, this book does not capitulate in its certainty that most of what made personal computing happen was the financial interests of an elite investor class who were less interested in producing a social revolution than they were in securing their financial standing in the midst of the economic uncertainty of the 1970s and 80s. These tensions, at times irresolvable in the project of historical storytelling, are what the Apple II age is, not the story of a computer, but a roving tour of the American microcomputing milieu. And I can't imagine telling that story differently. Refusing clean focus is central to the work. This is a harder historical task, less heroic, less obvious, but it also helps dismantle our sense that any technology, past or present, should be taken as inevitable, unchangeable, or apolitical. Understanding that computing has always been a story of context rather than triumphs broadens our horizons of interpretation in the present. So to understand all this, we have to stick with it. Embedded in the Apple II is a history at last ready to move beyond hagiographic accounts of the brilliant loner who engineered it, Steve Wozniak, the charismatic bully who designed it, Steve Jobs, and the savvy investor who financed it, Mike Markkula, and get its hands dirty with a greater historical challenge: understanding the microcomputer's impact on everything else. Thank you. Oh my God, I'm done. That's it. You can buy this book anywhere, but don't buy it on Amazon. All right. But leave me a review on Amazon. All right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to come on stage to ask of where can they buy it. You don't have any with you tonight, right? For those hungry WordHack fans.
Unfortunately, but it's published by the University of Chicago Press, and if you Google that, you can find their website, or Google the Apple II Age, University of Chicago Press, and they are on like sale right now, 40% off if you, and I so regret I have to say this, use the promo code Nooney40. I didn't come up with it, is all I want to say. But just in time for Father's Day, for that Mac Dad in your life, just like to troll your father, I think is a great thing. And yeah, at 40% off, it's like $16, which actually is like a really good price. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll use it. Thank you so much. Give it up one more time for Laine Nooney. And and buy that book and help a secure white man in your life question their nostalgia. I'm really excited to read this book. I haven't read it yet, but man, what an introduction! Wow, what a show we're having. We've got one final speaker. Really excited to have this person come join us. American artist, really amazing artist, educator, sculptor. Someone who works with critical theory, technology, race, an amazing thinker and writer. Someone I've been wanting to have at the show for a really long time and who I have the great pleasure of working with at the School for Poetic Computation. Let's give a warm welcome to American artist.
Hello. I don't have sound. Okay. I think I'll be less humorous than everyone, but I think similar to Ingrid, I'm used to like the academic audience, but I really appreciate talking about art and theory in like any other context because I think it's actually really relevant and accessible when you want it to be. I don't know, I'll try. You can let me know if it's working. Yeah, I was driving with Todd and telling him about my obsession with like slide decks as like a format. And then he was like, you should do WordHack. I'm like, okay, I'm down. Okay. I know it's really, well, for one thing, it's distorted, but I don't know. I'm into it. Okay, so my name is American Artist. I go by American. So I like to do a talk that's like not just talk. Like when I make work as well, I like to sort of like respond to the context rather than like just the same thing in different spaces. So I really thought about what WordHack means, and so I'm kind of thinking about it through the idea of like manifestation, redaction, and annotation. So that's what I'm going to talk about. After all, the subversive intellectual came under false pretenses, with bad documents out of love. Her labor is as necessary as it is unwelcome. This is a quote from Fred Moten and Stefano Hardy's The Undercommons. And I like that quote as a way to introduce Octavia Butler. Yes. Octavia Butler is an amazing science fiction author that I'm sure many of you know. This is a photo of her from when she was in high school, which will be a little more relevant as I get into this conversation. But she's written many novels such as Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, Kindred, the Xenogenesis series, like a lot of different stuff. But really was, you know, this Black woman like writing sci-fi at this time when that was really not a popular thing. And so I've been really interested in her life and work and thinking about the sort of like social context she grew up in. Yeah. So I grew up in California. A lot of the artwork that I make is thinking about technology and history. So thinking about like along the lines of some of what was talked about earlier, this sort of like history of Silicon Valley or settler colonialism within California. which is, responsible for a lot of the names of the major cities in California. And also like prison industrial complex, university industrial complex, like you name it, it's in California. But I grew up in Pasadena, California, which is like a kind of like collegiate suburb outside of LA. And this is also where Octavia Butler grew up, and we actually went to the same high school. And so I always started to kind of think about what that specific context of Pasadena, meant to like inform her vision. And like, there's a lot of rocket science industry there, and as well as like science fiction writing in like the early, 40s and 50s. So just thinking about how all of that sort of also related to what she was doing became really interesting to me. I'm a native of Pasadena, and I've lived all my life in the LA area, so I care about this part of the world. I care about where it seems to be headed. So that was something that she wrote like in one of her various notes that's in her archive. I've also been thinking about like the particular geographic landscape, that California offers, and how that plays a role in a lot of the dystopic novels that she wrote as sort of warning signs of what's going to happen if we don't get our shit together. Yeah, you can clap for that. So I as much as I love her novels, I also am like super obsessed with her like as a person, who is really tenacious and like really manifested the life that she wanted to live when there was no blueprint or pattern for what that would look like for someone that was growing up the way she did. So this is just like a sample of one of the many things she wrote, where she wrote, "I am a best-selling writer. I write best-selling books." And basically writing things that she wanted for herself before they actually came true, which all of them did come true eventually. And I am also interested in this idea of manifestation. And so, yeah, so I changed my name to American Artist. I legally changed my name. And at the time that I did this, I was not a, professional artist, but part of it was about sort of manifesting, like, if I name myself that, then I am that, and so thinking about this idea of manifestation, I think really resonated with me. But this is like a painting by Richard Prince. It's called Untitled Joke. And the joke is, I never had a penny to my name, so I changed my name. And I was thinking of this idea of like manifestation, or particularly like using a legal categorization to like create, another possibility, or like the way I approached a name change was like taking the system that we take for granted and trying to like, think of how I could use it to my own advantage. And I feel like that's an example of like word hacking. That's for you, Todd. Okay, so again, thinking about the connection to Octavia Butler, this is like a really cool graphic that I found from this essay called Geographical Perspectives on the History of Black America. And it shows a lot of the migration that happened after emancipation, and basically at a time after slavery had legally ended, when there was a lot of, racist violence in the South, lynchings were a regular practice. A lot of Black people moved to New York or Chicago. So like these two big dots are like where many people moved, but also there's a significant number of people that moved to California. And so through that time, that's when Octavia Butler's family migrated to California. So they're originally from Louisiana. And my own family, my dad's family was from Tennessee, and my mom's family was from Oklahoma. So thinking of a sort of like, I don't know, kind of parallel between our own sort of like family migration after the end of slavery. And so when her family got to California, her grandmother, Estella Butler, had this chicken farm that was in Apple Valley near Victorville. And this image is like, it's like a sort of like tax document that shows kind of like some plots in the area where this happened. So it's not very decipherable, but I like the image. But basically, I have been thinking about this chicken farm that her grandmother had as this sort of like moment of them establishing themselves in California. This moment of autonomy or like aspiration in their process of migration, you know, to California. And Octavia Butler writes very viscerally about, you know, this memory as a child of when this chicken farm burns down, and they're like, you know, taken out of it as it's burning. And if you read her books, like there's this kind of trope of like places burning, you know, like fire is a really constant image. And so that idea of fire kind of comes from this memory she has of, you know, leaving this chicken farm as a child. So I'm working on a piece that is based around a chicken coop, and I don't know what that chicken farm looked like because there's no record of it. But I was talking to my family and like my aunts when they grew up in Tennessee, like their parents had like a chicken coop. And so I was like, maybe I can find out what that form was, you know, to have something to start with. And so this was like an email my aunt wrote to me. She says, "Hello, nephew. As I mentioned to you in the text, drawing is not my forte. I tried to draw a chicken coop. Attached are some pictures when put together resembles what my memory of my grandparents' chicken coop looked like. This is the best I can do. I'm sorry, but I did not get your artistic abilities. Hope you can put together my vision." But thinking about this idea of kind of like accessing, you know, historical memory through your family, I sort of draw a parallel to being able to visit Octavia Butler's archive, which is in the Huntington Library in California. And I've been visiting it and looking at these documents. There's like, I don't know, like 400 boxes of like all things from her whole life, from childhood to when she like was, you know, near the end of her life. But thinking of this notion of accessing the archive, again, is kind of like in relation to WordHack. But I did this series of drawings, which were basically like tracing these different documents that were in her archive. So this one in particular is these notebooks she had when she was in like, I think middle school or high school, or between both of those, where she's taking history notes about Pasadena. And the way these look, it's like if you go to the archive, you're not supposed to bring like your own pen or paper. They give you these like pink, what do you call that? Whatever, pink paper that has like the library logo on it, and like these pencils, these pinstripe pencils. And so I use those to like trace these documents. But yeah, you don't really have a choice in what the stationery is that you use. And this is really interesting to me, to think about this notion of like an institution sort of like gatekeeping information, even though like obviously I was able to access it, you know, it's not that easy to get into the archive. And this is the building where her archive is located at the Huntington Library. And the Huntington is in San Marino, which is kind of like a very wealthy suburb of Los Angeles. And it's interesting as a location because, you know, when Octavia Butler was growing up, her mother, what she did for work was she cleaned white people's houses, basically. And she would like bring books that were discarded from these jobs that she did, and she gave them to Octavia, and that was like stuff that she read. But the thing is that the houses that her mom would go to work were like around where the Huntington Library was. So it's very interesting for that to be the place where her documents are now located. So you go to this wealthy white suburb in order to see these documents. And so I've been thinking about this idea of like tracing the documents as a way to kind of like, you know, pull that knowledge outside of this very protected context. So a lot of my work also thinks about redaction, also thinking of my name as a form of redaction in a way. It's like sort of opaque. And this is a quote from Simone Brown, who's an author that I teach a lot. It says, "It is interesting to note here that the redaction of document 105969591 took the form of a whiteout, concealing a good portion of the original text with white blocks. In this way, deviating from the method of censoring the redacted data with opaque black blocks, rendering any information in the dark." And that description was about this document, which is this FBI file about Frantz Fanon, which is, you know, it's whited out with these white blocks. And she describes it in contrast to like the black blocks we're very familiar with. But also she kind of talks about this legacy of the FBI observing and also redacting files around many black radicals and musicians that are also like considered to be radical because of the speech that they put out. By considering that relationship between imaging and imagining in the registers of black annotation and black redaction, I want to think about what these images call forth. And I want to think through what they call on us to do, think, feel in the wake of slavery, which is to say, in an ongoing present of subjection and resistance. So this quote is Christina Sharp, and I like these phrases she uses of black annotation and black redaction. And what she means by that is ways that different black artists and radicals have sort of like taken up this language of redaction and annotation as a sort of subversive tool. So redaction obviously being like the removal of information, but sort of having, you know, agency over that. And then annotation being one of like amending or adding to an archive in order to augment it or add something that was missing. So you can also, when you think about the archive, thinking about what it means to add information where it was intentionally left out in order to give a more full context to someone's lived experience. But this was a project that I did in 2015, which was kind of my first attempt at like a visual form of redaction. So this was a performance called A Refusal, and this took place on social media, primarily Facebook. But basically like images that I would normally post on social media, I just redacted them with this solid blue images. So like for a year, every image I post would just look like this solid blue image. And yeah, that was like my first engagement with the idea of redaction, but really I was trying to sort of critique the platform and how we're expected to perform or like produce content for it. And then that kind of led to, or it didn't lead to it, but I feel like there's a sort of like relationship to this project that I did in 2020 for the Whitney Museum, which was called Looted. And again, I was using visual redaction, but the way this project kind of like turned out was this was during the protests in response to the murder of George Floyd, where the Whitney Museum boarded up the outside of their museum. And they asked me to do this online piece, and I was kind of like, you know, thinking about them boarding themselves up during like these Black Lives Matter protests, and like, what are you afraid of exactly? Like, what's gonna get looted? Who's doing the looting? Do you actually own the things in the museum? Like, are those looted already? So I just kind of had this fantasy of like, what if everything in the museum got looted? So if you would go to the website, you know, at a certain time, like all of the images would just be blacked out with this plywood boards. So again, thinking about this notion of like black redaction or black annotation. So yeah, I don't know. That's just like a lot of different thoughts that relate to WordHack. I'll leave you with this quote, which is, "We cannot say what new structures will replace the ones we live with yet, because once we have torn shit down, we will inevitably see more and see differently and feel a new sense of wanting and being and becoming." Thank you.
And let's give it up one more time for American Artist. We really appreciate all of your generous connections to the WordHack theme over the course of that talk. That's been our show. Let's give it up one more time for all our presenters. It's been a really great, a lot of really good historical perspectives on computing, on Octavia Butler. I'm really really happy with all the things we saw tonight. That was a really good time. WordHack is a show that happens more than once, if you didn't know. There are other WordHacks in the past, and there are others in the future. The ones in the future you can go to, and the ones in the past, sorry about you. But next month there will not be a WordHack. I'm sorry. I'm going to be on vacation. We are going to be back on the third Thursday of August. I want to say 17th. Let's look at that. It's 17th. Hey, sticks the landing. So I hope you'll come back on August 17th, and then on September 19th, and then October. I was going to say 12th, but that's not right. The one in October, too. There should be a link on the event for tonight. If you want to get on our mailing list, that's the best way to find out about it. And yeah, I mean, as compelling as it would be for me to vamp out of this event in the way that I vamped into this event, I think I'll let you go here. I'm Todd Anderson. It's been a pleasure to be your host this evening. Thanks so much for coming.